Thank you for joining us back on Daybreak on Trust TV. Now we're moving on to our newspaper review, and as usual, we kickstart with the Daily Trust newspaper. And the bolder headline states, Daura set for Buhari's burial as Nigeria mourns. You can read that story on page 3 and 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. How Lagos local government pool was won and lost. You can read the story on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper. 4 killed, many injured in Kano building collapse. You can read the story on page 28 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And also, succession move begins after Awujale's burial. You can read the story on page 33 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And lastly, residents flee as bandits attack Niger communities, kill 6, abduct over 20. You can read the full story on page 25 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Do well to get yourself a copy for more information. Hawa?
All right, next up we have the Punch newspaper right in front, as I believe every newspaper would have. Daura Kingsman Associates reflect on Buhari's final months. State burial begins in Abuja today, interment to follow in Katsina. I was hospitalized in the same hospital facility as Buhari, says Abdulsalam Abubakar. Jonathan visits Aisha in London as Amosun, Lawan, others arrive Daura. Tinubu appoints Akumi Ribadu, others to burial committee, and federal government delegation visits Aisha Mamman Daura Abdusalami in London. All right, at the top, we have Soldiers Bar traditionalists from Awujale's Muslim funeral. Osinbajo, governors of Shogbo, Daniel Dangote Grace Awujale's burial. At the bottom, we have Naira rebounds to 4-month high trade with a 1,580 Naira to the dollar. That's on page 25 of the Punch newspaper. Ogun workers begin strike over 82 billion Naira pension arrears. That is on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. And lastly, we have 2027 Adeleke attacks Arigbeshola over plan to oust governors. All right, next up, we have Daily Independent.
Okay, the bolder headline states on the Daily Independent, with debt burden, federal government taps into local markets to fund deficit. Experts warn borrowing poses broader risk to the economy. You can read that story on Daily Independent. And then also we have Nigerians' inflation projected to decline 21.4% in May. The story is on page 6 of the Daily Independent. PIA attracts $16 billion investment, drives sector growth, reps Deputy Speaker. You can read the story on page 7 of the Daily Independent. And Shatima leads federal government delegation to Buhari's family in London. Page 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper, and as tribute continues to pour in for Buhari, former president, for burial in Daura today. And also we have world leaders mourn Buhari on page 7 of the Daily Independent, and Tinubu raises 17-member committee for Buhari's burial. Page 6 of the Daily Independent. Do well to grab yourself a copy of the Daily Independent. Hawa?
All right, that is all we have. Joining us to review some of the headlines of the pages of today's newspapers is Programs Director, Daily Trust Foundation, Dr. Theophilus Abba. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's take a look at the bolder headlines on Daily Trust, and it states Daura set for Buhari's burial as Nigeria mourns. What's your thought on the sad news?
Well, I think Daura, Buhari actually put Daura on the world map, because I think he is one of the most prominent Nigerians who came from Daura, and his name has done Daura good. You know, from the time he was head of state, then he became president, and during his presidency, a lot of good happened in Daura. In fact, there was a time I went to Katsina, and I was discussing some Katsina. And they were saying, look, when you talk about Katsina, still everything was going to Daura, developments were going to Daura, universities, big hospitals, and all because of Buhari. So I'm thinking that you're one of the greatest sons of Daura, the greatest men that we emerge from that state, from that town, from that town. And I think the people will have to really bury him, with all the pomp and pageantry. I don't know how to because he made Daura proud. He made Daura. But anytime you hear Daura, you remember Buhari. Even when he was in politics, when he hadn't become president for the second time, you keep hearing about he's gone to Daura. People go go like on pilgrimage to Daura because they wanted to go and see Buhari, and so he made Daura a great name, and I think that is why, you really have to mourn him there.
Okay. So let's look at the local government elections that happened over the weekend in Lagos State. And, we have a headline that states how Lagos local government election was won and lost. We had reports about, some polling centers having, low turn-up when it comes to voters at, the local government area level. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, like it is said in the political circle, politics is local. And I remember the former deputy governor to Tinubu, she cried foul that the election was being rigged even before the result came out. She claimed that the election was being rigged. And so we are not shocked, let me put it that way, that APC tend to have won all the polling units, almost every polling unit. But the reason why I say we are not shocked is because there's a tradition of rigging. But if you look at the nature of Lagos, if you saw how Labour Party performed in the 2023 election, you should expect that there are some local governments in Lagos that Labour Party should make a lot of impact. Going by how people voted during the presidential election. Even PDP is very strong in Lagos. No matter how you look at it, PDP is very, very strong in Lagos. We so that the PDP will make a lot of impact in Lagos. And if PDP can garner a lot of vote at the state government election, at the governorship election, then we expect that at the local, at the grassroots, it should also make a lot of impact. But, it's left to the electoral body, is the integrity that is at stake. Because if you have a contest among political parties, and it's like, everything goes in the way of one party, and people are crying foul. You that conducted the election must actually wake up to say, okay, what did I do wrong? Because we have come to a stage in Nigeria that INEC or the State Independent Electoral Commission should know that all the political parties are not strangers in the state. The fact that the government is APC does not mean that PDP does not exist. And if a PDP candidate won the local government election, it's not as if the PDP candidate is a stranger or a foreigner or somebody who came from another planet. The PDP candidate is also a Lagosian. You understand? So everyone who has garnered popularity, everyone who has, who has followers should be allowed to hold positions, elected positions at the local government level. Because the fact that somebody belongs to Labour Party does not mean that he's a stranger. He's also a Lagosian. And if he becomes, if he's voted in as chairman and you declare him, it's not like he's going to bring proof from other places to come and run. So I'm thinking that the electoral bodies, should begin to take every political party as local, and then ensure that those ones that won elections are declared winners. This idea of because the governor is APC, every local government council chairman must be APC. It's not democratic.
All right. So we have a devastating story: 4 killed and many injured in Kano building collapse. There have been incidents like these that have happened due to lack of integrity of a building and things like that. What are your thoughts on this?
I think there's so many professional bodies that have been talking about how to ensure that buildings don't really collapse. When anyone is building a house, there's what we call development control. This development control, right from when you are digging the foundation, they will come and check whether the foundation that you have dug, the depth and the material that have entered into that foundation can actually carry the kind of building that you want to erect. And then if they discover that, look, you are supposed to maybe build a bungalow, I had a brainwave. I say, no, if I build what do you call it, an upstairs or 2-story building, I'll be able to rent it out and I'll make more money. And you're putting up 2-story building. The development contract is supposed to say, no, we gave you permit to build a bungalow. I don't have, this land doesn't have the capacity to, the foundation doesn't have the capacity to sustain a two-story building, So I think it also boils down to development control. Most times when you see public servants or civil servants who hold those positions, they explain away. They visit locations, and what they expect is maybe some money from the owners of the building. And we have come to a point in Nigeria that the loss of life is so much that these people who are given that responsibility to make sure that they verify the integrity of the structures do their jobs. Now, if anyone is saying, okay, I'm happy, I'm putting up this kind of big structure, okay, please, I'm so happy, I'm giving you 1 million naira. That does not mean that you won't tell him the truth. You say, look, this thing you are putting up, it's a very good idea, but then this foundation is not right. Absolutely. This material you are using is not of a good quality. The material that should go with this is of this quality. If you are putting so much money into this structure, then get the best of the materials. There has to be a way of controlling. But most times we tend to say, oh, God is in control. Anything that happens is the will of God and all this and all that. But many lives are being lost because of the negligence and the complacency of those in government.
Okay.
All right. We've had a series of prominent deaths. We have the succession move begins after Awujale's burial. What is your take on that? Already a succession is moving along. Okay.
Awujale was a traditional ruler,
Yes.
and he was lucky because he had been there since I think April 1960. Before many of us were even born.
Exactly.
He had been there. He was even there before the country became independent, And so, but the fact is that because it's a traditional throne, there's a succession procedure. There's a procedure, and there are traditions that must be followed, And we're just encouraging them to make sure they do the right thing. What we have discovered in recent years has been that whenever a traditional ruler, goes back to his ancestors, I think that's how we put it. They don't die. They go back to their ancestors. Whenever they return to their ancestors, what happens is the government want to influence the process. They want their friends who come from that area to be given, that title, because it commands a lot of respect and a lot of resources as well. And at times when that happens, there will be conflict. Those who are entitled to the throne will say, look, it is not the turn of this family or this house, the way they put it. It's the house of this that should produce. So it's not the turn of this person. And they will say, oh, this one was not born by an Awujale. Like in my place, if you were not born by an Ata, you cannot become an Ata. It is something that had been an issue. So you come from the royal family, your family is entitled to the throne, but from your family, you want to become an Ata, but from your family was the person who gave to you an Ata. You have to carry that. All those things are considered when these things are done. I don't know the tradition in the case of Awujale, but we encourage the governor of the state to ensure that the traditionalists do what they are supposed to do. Should do what they are supposed to so that there won't be conflict.
All right. All right. Let's look at the 2025 budget. It says here, with debt burden, federal government taps into local markets to fund the deficit, and experts warn borrowing poses broader risk to the economy. So what is your take on this and, the borrowing spree?
Well, if you look at it, the budget was a very large budget. And up to now, I don't think...
Yes.
They're heavily padded. We're even hearing about, thousands of projects, put into the budget by lawmakers. And unfortunately, the president approved it. Because in the days of Buhari, God bless his soul, he will say, look, all those funds that you people put, I'm not going to implement it. I'm not going to implement it. Oh, I gave you a budget of so and so, and now I'm seeing something that is different. I'm not going to fund your padded project. He will tell them. But in this case, Tinubu, accepted everything, and they were just signing, and we're hearing about 6.something trillion. Now, but the issue of borrowing, the fact is that it was already a deficit budget. We already knew that about 19 trillion was going to be borrowed. It was already, declared. Now, but the borrowing can come from various sources, multilateral organizations, bilateral organizations, and then internal borrowing. I think what they are talking about is what they can borrow from Nigeria, and then there are approaches to it. One of them, you can issue, bonds. Issue bonds, and banks will now, lap them up. If they issue bonds, banks will quickly grab the bonds and then sell to their customers. And if you buy bond, and at the point when the thing matures, nobody will give you excuses. You say, okay, this bond is for 6 months, and you buy it. Maybe you buy up to 10 million worth of federal government bond. When it is 6 months, you're going to get your interest. Your investment plus the interest are going to get. Now, but the major challenge is this: there are other sources that government can raise this money. Savings, if Nigerians save, government can borrow from that. The problem is that the saving culture in Nigeria has died, because what you earn is just not enough. Right. So before you know it, you've already spent that money. Right. So I don't think we have so much in that saving. But the next one is the pension fund. And that is why I'm afraid. Because there's so much money in the pension fund, and everybody is not collecting his pension on the same day. For instance, if you have up to your own pension may be up to, let's say, 5 million. Maybe that's what you have in your pension fund. Now that 5 million is there. Every month you are giving maybe 20,000, 15,000. So government will not have to borrow from it. But I'm saying that if they are going to borrow from pension fund, they should be kept so that it will get to a point pensioners should not access their money. That's what I want to.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Theophilus, for being here and giving us a review of the front pages of the headlines.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, with that, we've come to the end of Daybreak on Trust Television. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for another round of Daybreak. Don't miss out on that interesting conversation and interaction. As always, I'm Hawa Adamikiawa. Thank you for watching.
And I am Mimana Bagodo. Thank you for sticking with Daybreak on Trust TV. Do well to follow us on all of our social media platforms, and also subscribe to Trust TV's YouTube channel for more news. Have a great day. Bye-bye.